All right, today we are going to dive into a molecule that is part cosmic dust, part Nobel Prize-winning superstar, and part longevity legend. It's called carbon-60, and let me tell you, the story behind it is one of the most fascinating and controversial in all of modern health science. So let's get into it. It really all boils down to this one absolutely incredible claim. I mean, this is the claim that launched 1,000 supplements and completely captured the imagination of anyone even remotely interested in living a longer, healthier life. Could this one tiny molecule, C60, really double our time here on Earth? That's the big question we're going to try to answer today. But before we can really understand the hero of our story, we first need to meet the villain. And it's a villain that every single one of us knows intimately. The process of aging itself. Because at its very core, aging is just the story of our own cells being under a constant, relentless attack. Now, there's a scientific name for this attack, and it's called oxidative stress. The best way to think about it is like rust, but it's happening inside your body. It's this damaging imbalance that causes all sorts of trouble for our cells, our DNA, and yeah, it's a huge driver of everything from wrinkles to a lot of chronic diseases. So who are the little troublemakers causing all this chaos? They go by the name free radicals. And the crazy thing is, these unstable, super reactive molecules are just a natural byproduct of our own metabolism. The very process that keeps us alive. They're the microscopic bad guys in this story, constantly trying to break things down from the inside out. So, now that we've set the stage with the problem, let's bring in the potential solution, a molecule so unbelievably unique in its shape and its origin that its discovery was just this massive scientific event. Get this, back in 1985, a few scientists were trying to recreate the conditions inside giant red stars. Just another day at the office, blasting graphite with a laser. And in doing so, they accidentally discovered a brand new form of carbon. Now, this wasn't just some small find. It was so fundamental, so important, that by 1996, bam, it earned them the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. And what they found was this perfect little sphere made of exactly 60 carbon atoms. It was arranged in a pattern of hexagons and pentagons that looked exactly like a classic soccer ball. Its formal name is a real mouthful, a Buckminster fullerene, but we just know it as C60. So what is it about this little carbon soccer ball that makes it so special? Well, it all comes down to its incredible, unique ability to deal with all those free radicals we were just talking about. So think about an antioxidant like vitamin C. It's great, but it's kind of like a one-shot deal. It can neutralize one free radical, but then it's used up. It's done. C60, on the other hand, is in a completely different league. It acts more like a reusable radical sponge. Its amazing structure lets it just soak up and neutralize tons and tons of free radicals without being destroyed in the process. It's just unbelievably efficient. And hey, this isn't just hype. This quote here is from a peer-reviewed paper. They're basically saying that its ability to protect against aging, its geroprotective activity, is way, way higher than even the most powerful antioxidants we already knew about. That's a huge claim for scientists to make. And here's its other superpower. C60 is lipophilic, which is just a fancy way of saying it's fat-soluble. Now, why does that matter so much? Because it means it can slip right through the fatty outer wall of our cells and get inside to the mitochondria. And the mitochondria are not only our cells' power plants, they're also ground zero for where most of those damaging free radicals are made. C60 goes right to the source of the fire. And that brings us to the moment. The moment that C60 went from being a cool scientific curiosity to a global phenomenon. This is the landmark study that set the entire longevity world on fire. Okay, so back in 2012, a study was published that was actually just supposed to test if C60 was toxic to rats. But what they found was something else entirely. The control group of rats given water lived a normal 22 months. The rats given just olive oil lived a little longer, 26 months. But the rats that were given C60 dissolved in that olive oil, they lived for a median of 42 months. Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. That's a 90% increase in lifespan compared to the standard group. These rats didn't just live longer, they lived healthier. None of them developed the tumors that the other rats did, and they saw zero toxicity. It was an absolutely unheard of result that seemed to promise a complete revolution in how we think about aging.
But you know how it is in science. One extraordinary result is never, ever the end of the story. The next chapter introduced a major plot twist, creating a controversy that's still being debated to this day.
So when other labs tried to replicate this incredible finding, they hit a wall. As you can see here, two major studies that came out in 2021, this time using mice instead of rats, they just failed to show any significant life extension. That amazing 90% effect, it just seemed to vanish into thin air.
So what happened? I mean, why would C60 perform miracles for rats but do nothing for mice? That is the heart of the whole scientific debate. The reasons could be super complex. Maybe there are just big differences in metabolism between the species, or maybe it had something to do with the olive oil itself.
And here's where the nuance comes in, and this is so important. In those mouse studies, while the C60-treated mice didn't live longer than the water group, they did live longer than the mice that were given only olive oil. So one theory is that for this particular strain of mouse, the olive oil might have had some kind of negative effect, and the C60 was actually protecting them from that damage. So it was still doing something good, just not the magical thing everyone was hoping for. So, after all of the incredible excitement and the confusing controversy, where does all this leave us? What do scientists think about carbon-60 today?
Okay, so here's the bottom line. That incredible life extension claim, it remains totally unproven in humans, and it's still heavily debated in animal models. But, and this is a big but, what the science has shown again and again is that C60 is a seriously potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory agent. It's been shown to reduce key markers of inflammation, it can cross the blood-brain barrier, which is huge for potential neuroprotection, and it's being actively researched for everything from skincare to athletic recovery. The science is very real, even if the biggest claim isn't quite settled.
Which leaves us with this final, thought-provoking question. Is carbon-60 really the key to a longer, healthier life? A true radical sponge that can protect us from the ravages of time? Or is its story more of a captivating scientific tale, where one incredible, maybe even fluky result sparked a wave of hope that later studies just couldn't quite confirm? You know, as is often the case, the truth is probably hiding somewhere in between.